Hello and welcome to another video. Losing a child is every parent's worst nightmare, but for one couple, the tragedy was their own doing.
The little girl's gone.
When their daughter was found unresponsive, confusion surrounded the cause. Drugs, illness, or something else?
I've done a lot of drugs in my life, and I've never felt anything like I did last night.
As detectives investigated, the heartbreaking truth emerged. The parents had unknowingly created a deadly environment, leading to their child's death. 34-year-old music Adame and her boyfriend, Matthew Bynum, woke up to police inside their trash-filled trailer. They were barely able to move or speak. Underneath them lay their daughter, Jacqueline, unresponsive. Earlier that morning, Faddis Hawkins, who was staying in his truck on their property, woke up to screaming from inside the trailer. When he went to check, he found Music, Matthew, and their 2 children unable to move. Their daughter was pale and had no pulse. When Faddis tried to call 911, Music insisted they didn't need help, but he ignored her and made the call anyway. When police arrived, they found the couple disoriented and confused. Despite officers urging them to move, they struggled to stand. The home was in terrible condition, filled with trash, and had a strange odor. As officers tried to figure out what had happened, they discovered a metal container with ashes, a crucial clue to solving the case. Deputies attempted CPR on their daughter, Jacqueline, but it was too late. She had passed away. Their son, though weak, was still alive and was rushed to the hospital. Throughout the investigation, Music and Matthew denied taking any drugs, but they remained incoherent and unaware that their daughter had died just inches away from them. As more evidence came to light, authorities concluded that the couple's neglect had led to their daughter's death. Both were arrested and charged. The situation was so bizarre that even the officers had never seen anything like it. Music Adame insisted she hadn't taken any drugs since the day before, yet she and Matthew Bynum were unable to walk or think clearly. Detectives needed to figure out what was happening. When police checked on Matthew, he was slumped over, feeling lightheaded and struggling to respond. Meanwhile, officers discovered a burnt needle and ash marks on Music's sweater. As Music was taken to the hospital, she admitted that she and Matthew had smoked Fam Bam Mean the previous day, something they did regularly. Shockingly, this had happened on their daughter's birthday, a day meant for celebration but instead consumed by drugs and filth. However, amphetamines alone wouldn't explain their extreme inability to function, leading investigators to suspect the drugs had been laced with something even more dangerous. Faddis, the man who had called 911, was detained for questioning. Back at the scene, officers continued interrogating Music. She rambled about past medical issues and denied knowing what had happened, at one point even claiming that her kids were all floppy. Yet she contradicted herself, first admitting to using drugs at the birthday party, then backtracking. In the hospital, Music expressed confusion, insisting she had never experienced anything like this before and requested a toxicology test. She also unknowingly revealed more inconsistencies, claiming the only thing they ate was a chocolate cake from Albertsons. While Music played the role of a concerned mother, her son told medics he hadn't eaten since Friday, 2 full days before the incident. This revelation cast doubt on her claims of care and love for her children. Meanwhile, officers, fully aware of Jacqueline's death, withheld the information from Music to maintain control of the investigation. In another hospital room, nurses worked to save her surviving son. He was weak but alive, offering a glimmer of hope amid the horrifying tragedy. As the investigation continued, a statement from a nurse added a disturbing new detail. Music and Matthew's son couldn't put pressure on his legs, just like his parents earlier. This raised the possibility that something other than drugs had caused their condition. While Music recovered in the hospital, detectives prepared to deliver devastating news. When told that every death is treated as a homicide until proven otherwise, she seemed confused. When officers revealed that her daughter was gone, she reacted with disbelief, insisting that Jacqueline had been awake and talking earlier. Matthew was given the chance to break the news to her privately, but he couldn't do it, leaving it to a detective later. Despite everything, authorities released them, instructing them not to return home. With nowhere to go, they spent the night on the streets while detectives searched for answers. The most likely person to provide clarity was Faddis, the man who called 911 and seemed to be the only coherent adult at the scene. Brought in for questioning, he explained that he had been sleeping in his van when he heard sounds from inside the tiny home. When he checked, he found music lying near Zacky's line and called 911. His story aligned with what officers had observed, but his claim that Music and Matthew only used marijuana contradicted Music's earlier admission of amphetamine use. Whether he was unaware or covering for them was unclear. However, when asked how the family heated their home, his response shifted the entire investigation. He explained that they had run out of propane and instead burned coal outside, bringing it in after it cooled. Detectives immediately considered the possibility of carbon monoxide poisoning, which could explain their symptoms: weakness, confusion, and, in severe cases, death. If the trailer had been sealed, toxic fumes could have accumulated, leading to Zacky's tragic fate. Detectives were now convinced that carbon monoxide poisoning was the most likely cause of Zacky's death. To confirm this, they returned to the trailer later that night to investigate. They noted the family's living conditions and theorized that if Zacky had been sick or immunocompromised, the poisoning could have affected her more severely. A post-mortem toxicology analysis later confirmed their suspicions. Zacky's carboxyhemoglobin saturation was at 70%, a fatal level of exposure. With this definitive proof, detectives needed to determine whether Music and Matthew knowingly put their children at risk. The next day, both parents were brought in for questioning. Matthew refused to speak without a lawyer, but Music agreed to an interrogation. The detective aimed to uncover whether they were aware of the dangers of heating their home with coal ash, and if they had delayed calling 911, knowing Zacky was already dead. Music immediately attempted to control the narrative, admitting to drug use but insisting it had nothing to do with their condition. She claimed she had never felt as weak as she did that night, and that she had no idea what had happened to her children. The detective, believing Music might have known Zacky was dead before officers arrived, carefully guided the conversation without revealing the toxicology results. Music continued to rationalize their heating methods, stating they normally ventilated the home and had learned from past experiences with propane heaters. However, it became evident that on that tragic night, they had likely failed to properly ventilate, leading to fatal carbon monoxide exposure. The detective eventually broke the news that Zacky hadn't survived. His observations of Music's reaction were telling. She appeared to force a display of shock, but no real tears came. After remaining free for over 2 months, both Music and Matthew were eventually arrested. Their trial remains ongoing, and if convicted, they could face life in prison. That's all for the video. Share your thoughts in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more such videos.